Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. This meeting is in regards to our 6 through 12 special education reopen plans. So today, participating with us as panelists is our Miss Barbara Beeman. She's our special education coordinator for the district. Miss Christina Heffley, who is Director of Technology. Miss Tricia Marini, Special Education Department Chair at Madison Middle School. Miss Michelle Hayes, Special Ed Department Chair at Hillcrest Middle School. And Miss Kristen Magazine, she's our Special Education Department Chair at Trumbull High School. So what we're doing this morning is trying to provide you with some updated information as it relates to the delivery of special education and related services as we reopen the schools. Now, just a few little housekeeping things. If you have some questions, please put them in the question and answer box. And at the end, Mr. Chan will call on you to ask your questions. And so with that, I think we'll just get started. So many of you are aware that we're opening in the hybrid model. There will be 2 cohorts of students who will attend either Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. Now, we've worked with a team of people in our subcommittee on the reopening plans. And I just wanted to let you know who was on that committee, because it really was a comprehensive group. On that subcommittee, we had special education teachers, related services personnel, which would be speech pathology, OT, PT, social workers. We've had administrators from all levels. We had technology. We have nursing, and we also had paraprofessionals because they are in the classroom supporting children, and we thought it was important to have as many people represented on that committee. So with the hybrid model, when students are not physically in school, they will be engaging in distance learning. Mrs. Heffley will be describing that a little bit later in the presentation. But we want to assure you that the learning opportunities for the kids will be far more robust than they were in the spring. We do recognize that there were some challenges with that because it was all new to everyone. But over the summer, there's been committees working to really update and make that learning opportunity a little bit more robust. Some other questions that have continually come up is the question about students attending 4 days in person. So what I want to do is clarify what that means for our students with special education needs. We made the decision to invite the children that are currently being served in self-contained programs to attend 4 days during this hybrid model. They will be contacted by either the department chairperson in their building or by the student's case manager to discuss coming to school and what that will look like. So when the students return to school, with the the groups of kids that will be attending 2 days, the special education teams will be working to assess where students are relative to their IEP goals and objectives, and then to make some determinations at that juncture if additional supports and services or perhaps some additional in-person learning days are needed. With all the children that will be attending the 2-day cohort, you can expect that your child will be supported by either teachers, related service personnel, paraprofessionals during the distance learning days. We're going to continue to use the Google Classroom for the 6-12 group because that seemed to work really quite well in the spring. When students are in person during those 2 days, the expectation is they will receive their related services and special education services during that time so that they have the face-to-face contact that we believe is needed. Another area that continues to come up as a question is the area of evaluations. Many students were not evaluated between March and June because of the school closure. So what will happen is school teams are going to develop an assessment schedule to catch up with those missed evaluations due to the school closure. These evaluations will occur as quickly as possible once the teams develop those schedules, and PPTs will be reconvened to review the results. Another question has come up. My student had an initial PPT, but there's no initial evaluation. That will be part of the scheduling as well, and we will try and do our best to adhere to the 45-day school timeline. This PPS department has been ordering specialized PPE for our service providers and for our staff. Some of that we have clear masks because students that have speech and language do require to be able to see the speech pathologist's mouth. And certainly with the special ed teachers, it's always much more helpful to be able to do some reading of facial expressions. We've ordered face shields, we've ordered gloves, and we are also in the process of ordering gowns. The department has worked closely with facilities as well to order plexiglass dividers to make sure that when students are being evaluated or if they're in a small group, there is more protection. For those students whose parents have opted for the temporary remote learning option, we will provide those distant learning opportunities for the student. However, you need to understand that the teacher and the service provider may be someone different than your student is accustomed to, just because the teachers that will be working in person may not be able to also do the distance learning. And then one other question that has come up repeatedly is about the IEPs and whether or not those IEPs need to be revised to accommodate the hybrid learning model. Just this morning, we received additional guidance from the state. I have not gotten through the document yet. It is quite lengthy. But this afternoon, Ms. Beeman and I are going to be attending a Zoom meeting that really is going to focus on the IEP, the provision of hybrid services, and also how these special education and related services need to be provided or can be provided during this model. One of the things that people need to understand is that there is some flexibilities as to how this is going to occur. So once Ms. Beeman and I finish with the Zoom call this afternoon and get through the document, the information will be disseminated to the public as quickly as possible. Before I turn this over to Ms. Heffley, does any of the department chairs or Ms. Beeman have anything they want to add? Okay. Then Ms. Heffley, if you can provide us with some updates as to what the distance learning will look like.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. So I just want to go through and give you kind of some examples on what those distance learning days would look like for a child in the secondary level in grades 6 through 12. We know last year that when we started to do distance learning, your kids were given a lot of independent work. Probably 3-4 weeks into it, you might have seen some recorded video from the teachers, but we still did not have teachers doing any sort of live video instruction. I would say about a month to 6 weeks before the end of school, we started to do lots of professional development for teachers on getting them up to speed on how to do live video, where that sort of aligns with the curriculum, how it can best be implemented to support students. And we also recognized that there was not a lot of support structures put in place for when kids had questions when they were doing distance learning and that kind of thing. So our plan is to fix those things going into next year. We recognize that those distance learning days need to be a balance of a variety of different activities. So we always say, you know, we don't want kids, even secondary kids, on the computer 6.5 hours a day just listening to lectures from teachers. We want them to have constant interaction with teachers. So for example, we plan on balancing those distance learning days with synchronous and asynchronous activities, online and offline activities. So you might have a live meeting with a teacher who may give the kid instructions or do a mini lesson for 10 minutes and then give the students activities to do at home. You'll see more of a mixture. We did a lot of full group Google Meets, classes last year. You'll see, I think, more of small group instruction. So a teacher may choose to bring together a small group of students, or a para may work with a couple of kids on a particular topic and support them. So you'll see more of those sort of small group live meetings together. You'll also see a mixture of teacher-led work and independent work. So we do expect on those distance learning days, your students will have independent work to do, but it shouldn't be all independent work, right? It's got to be a variety of those different teaching strategies I just outlined. And then we plan on, I think Kim had mentioned that there'll be sort of more support for students via a para, another teacher, that kind of thing on those days that they're not in school, so that they have that support that they need. And then we also see teachers doing check-ins with kids. Like, we want kids to have a contact with an adult during those distance learning days. So we don't expect that the fall is going to look like where your kid will be out at home Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and they have no live contact with a teacher, with a support person. They will be doing regular check-ins with kids, like I said, meeting with small groups, doing live video instruction, doing some recorded video instruction, and the plans will be very much outlined. Kim did mention we will continue to use the Google Classroom platform, grades 3 through 12, because we found the submitting of assignments and how that works from a technology standpoint worked pretty well. We also used it pretty extensively at the secondary level, even prior to COVID. So we will see teachers continuing to use that platform. And there's a bunch of features, new features that are released in Google Classroom and Google Meet that we're excited to do professional development with teachers on when they come back in August, because I think it's going to help us really facilitate a much more robust experience for those students on distance learning days. That's all I have, Kim.
Thank you, Christina. Okay, I think if there's no one has anything else to add, I think we're ready for questions, Mr. Chin.
Sure. So if you're on the phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand, and if you're on Zoom, you can just press the raise hand feature to request. There's currently nobody looking to ask a question. So, oh, there's one. There's two. Lawless, you may speak.
Hi, good morning. My name is Leslie DeCoco. It's my login name. When are we going to find out if our child has been invited for the 4 days or not?
That's a good question. What will happen is the school teams are looking at students and will make determinations. As soon as the team has made a decision, then they will let you know. I don't have an exact date on that. What we are starting with are those students that are in self-contained programs. And then there may be a handful of other kids that have some rather significant needs that would be invited. The rest of the students would come for the 2 days, and then teams will assess based on their IEP goals and objectives to make determinations if additional days would be required.
Is it possible to, in the beginning, if they're not invited for the 4 days, to request 4 days?
You can request 4 days, but I'm still saying the same thing for those requests, that it really is contingent upon the school teams to make the determinations. I can't make those determinations. I don't know the students. The students, the teams know the kids the best.
Right, and is a lot of it going to be determined by how they did during the distance learning in the spring? Because I'm speaking for myself here. I was home working from home, and the depth of her learning disabilities was quite eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to be home now. I have to be at work. If I am not, will they be able to have more time to hand in their assignments if they go into the shutdown mode, which happens?
Sure. So in answer to that question, I think yes, they could. Again, I need to defer to the buildings because it is, you know, how they operate. Each building is slightly different in terms of how they operate. But yes, we're not going to penalize students because they didn't turn an assignment in, you know, at the right hour or whatever. So, I think that's a conversation that needs to be had with the student's case manager or the department chair at the building level.
Okay, okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, the username is MI019.
Hey there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, it's Michelle Lungy. So I just have a quick question. I know when this started, my daughter gets a lot of speech, and we were told that her speech teacher couldn't do, like on the at-home days, she couldn't do like a live session with her because she didn't have a certain kind of license for that. So we missed out, I feel like, on a lot of speech. Will that change go forward?
Good question. Yes, it certainly will. We are working on having some more live sessions, video sessions. My expectation is when students are in school, they will receive at least one live in-person session with their speech pathologist or any of their other service providers. And then on those other distance learning days, they will have some opportunity either to work with a paraprofessional or to have the speech pathologist do some video learning. So again, we have some flexibility in terms of how we implement the IEP, and the guidance did just come this morning. So we are going to hopefully get more clarification once I get through the document and have that meeting this afternoon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Miss McIntyre?
Hi, good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
I just wondered if there was any sort of timeframes on when we would get that you talked about. There would be a schedule for when they will receive their services and who those services will be provided by. Do you have any idea of when we will sort of get that information?
So what I'm expecting is when the staff come back, there are 6 days that prior to the opening of school, that they will be working on those very schedules. So as soon as the schedules are available, they will work on, we don't do the scheduling at central office, but certainly
Right.
at the school level, the school teams are, and I know some of them have already been starting to work on those. But once they have the cohorts all figured out and what days kids are coming, then they can work on the schedule. So we're working as quickly as possible, but hopefully before the very first day of school, the schedules will be in the students' hands.
Okay, that's great. And thank you very much for providing this. This is very helpful.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Edna Borchetta?
Good morning. I have a question. I'm sorry I was late to a meeting before this, but I wanted to ask, what about those of us whose children have health conditions that will prevent them from being in school? So we are choosing temporary remote learning.
So we are certainly going to provide those services at home, in a variety of ways. It might be through this type of a platform in a Google meeting. It may be through phone conferences, but we are anticipating that there will be a number of students that are not able to attend and that we do need to provide the services through this kind of a platform.
Okay, and will it look like it did in the spring?
No, it should not. What we're hoping is that it's going to be far more robust and that it will be more scheduled, and staff will be participating either in Zoom, in a Google Meet, or some other platform. The thing you need to understand, however, is that the service provider that your child may be familiar with might not be the one that does this type of intervention, simply because depending on who is able to provide the distance learning, it might be a different person. It might not be the same speech pathologist or the same counselor. Just again, it's depends on the schedules of everyone.
Well, this year my daughter's transitioning to high school, so I think everyone was going to be new, most likely anyway. But so what you're saying is that there are going to be specific providers for those who are doing remote learning.
It's likely the answer is yes.
Okay, and then as far as the being more robust than it was in the spring, I have to say, you know, spring for her was very challenging, and I think a parent earlier had said that they were surprised by the, you know, how much assistance their child needed, and we saw that over the spring with my daughter, and but the summer was completely different. The summer was excellent, but then there were only 4 kids in her class, so it wasn't a shock. It was, but I have to say that, you know, she was so engaged over the summer. The, you know, the scheduling was worked out really well. The learning, the one-to-one opportunities with both her teacher and her para were excellent. And if we could have seen that in the spring, it would have been wonderful. But I sincerely hope that that's how it would be going forward, because I did see her, we saw her thrive over the summer and really look forward to being in school every day.
Sure.
And taking more initiative, and also seeing her language blossom. So there were, distance learning can work for her.
I agree.
Summer
And
proved.
so yes, we did learn from summer, and so my hope is that that will continue, and it will get better and better as we move through the school year.
Wonderful, thank you.
You're welcome.
There are currently no other people wishing to speak.
Okay, are there any questions in the Q&A that we haven't answered that maybe we can answer right now?
Kim,
Yeah.
it's Christina.
Hi.
I'm just going through, will children with 504 plans also have consideration support for hybrid services? Ability to work well in a school environment doesn't necessarily mean success in a less supportive environment.
So in answer to that question, they should still be provided with their accommodations that are on their 504 plans and any interventions that are necessary. They should be afforded the same opportunities as other students in terms of being able to have the to determine what assessments or whether or not they require additional supports and services.
And then we have another question. Oops, I lost it on my screen. Hold on. About evaluations. If the evaluations are taking place in the first 6 weeks of school, but schools close, how will those evaluations and assessments be done?
That's a good question. So we have talked about this, and I guess it will depend on the metrics. If we can keep a building or two open, we can bring students in. But again, until that happens, we aren't 100% sure. My hope is that we will be able to continue to do those evaluations and bring the kids in kind of more on a one-to-one basis rather than having them just pulled out of a classroom to do the assessments.
We answered the question about evaluations that took place in the spring. I don't see any.
Anything else?
I think we answered. There is the question about will it be pass, fail, or grades? From not specific to special education, but general education, I do expect our sort of grading scale to go back to sort of more of a traditional grading scale. At this point, we have a group looking at grading and assessment pre-K to grade 12, so more information will be forthcoming on that.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a question from Anna C.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So my question is basically about going forward. All the questions and any progress report or any modifications to the plan, it should be directed to the manager, the case manager, or should be directed to somebody else. I had, I was lost in the spring to who goes to, for questions about, like, the case manager didn't know about this specialist or about this other specialist. So who should be your contact for any services that you are have questions for your son?
So it should be the case manager. If the case manager does not have the answer to the question, then she can direct the question to the appropriate personnel. So it could be, so it could be the speech pathologist or the occupational therapist or whomever your child might be working with, or whatever question you have.
Okay. About my other question, thank you. My other question will be about OT. How the services for OT will be provided when the kids are out of school. We had like a list of exercises to do at home, but it's not like I am not OT, so I don't know exactly how to do it with my son.
Right. So what we're hoping, like with any of the distance learning, is that there will be some face-to-face virtual conferencing with the students. The OTs were also providing some recorded videos so that students can look at the recorded videos. But I think even when they do the recorded videos, when they're in person, they will see the student just to make some assessments and determine how the distance learning piece should occur.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Kim, we have a question about masks. What about kids who don't keep their masks on in the special ed classroom?
We've been working and talking with staff about doing some social stories and working on, I think in all of our classrooms, both general and special education, we are going to have to be doing some educating for especially the younger students, but the students that really are challenged by keeping the masks on, we will be working on desensitizing them and continuing to provide them with some supports so that we can extend the time that they're able to keep their masks on. There will also be mask breaks included throughout the day. So we're hoping that with the combination of the work that the staff will be doing and the breaks, that we'll be able to start extending the time for the students to be able to keep their masks on.
We have another question on what will a student's schedule look like now with being only in school 2 days a week, and it's sounding like their service implementation will be crammed into those 2 days that they're in person. It doesn't sound like this will be a balanced school day.
Okay, so in answer to that, their services are not going to be crammed in. What we can expect is that at least every service provider will see the student one time during the time they're in school. The other days we will be providing some distance learning opportunities to implement the IEP, and it might be through support with a para or a teacher or a different service provider. But we're not going, if a student has, say, 3 days a week of speech, we're not going to cram 3 days a week of speech into one of those days that the student is in. The expectation is that they have to have some live instruction, and then there will be some of the virtual instruction as well.
Okay, Ms. McIntyre has another question.
Yes, sorry, thank you. I just wanted to know if we chose temporary remote learning, the assessments that you were talking about that would take place the first 4 to 6 weeks, how would those work?
If your student was due to have an evaluation back in anywhere between March and June, what we would probably need to do is bring him or her in to the school to do the actual evaluation, because we have to do in-person evaluations. We can't do them virtually because it does invalidate the test. So we have rooms that we can set up and sanitize so that what will happen is you wouldn't necessarily be able to bring your child in. You would have to drop your child at the door. We would have to develop a plan for that.
So that's not the case for us. Our evaluations are all complete, but I was thinking more of just like the you know, what ground have they lost in the spring, that sort of stuff.
So that would occur on a virtual level. So it might be one-to-one, it might be a small group, but the teachers will have to take, look at the IEP and then make some determinations as to where that student should be,
Right.
based on the information that they have. And certainly that person could, depending on who is doing that, could contact the student's case manager if the student would have been in school. So
Sure.
we've got a couple of, we're going to have to be flexible in terms of how we do that remotely.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Any other new questions, Christina?
This is sort of a general question. On which days does special needs students go to school? And I think you talked a little bit about that, about the cohorts.
Right, so it will be dependent on the cohorts. I believe at the end of this week, principals should be informing parents of what cohort their student will be in.
Actually, at secondary, it's A through L is cohort 1. It's different for elementary school. So elementary school, you will get an email from your principal, but secondary is A through L is cohort 1, which goes to school Monday, Tuesday, and then does distance learning Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And M through Z is distance learning Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and in-person Thursday, Friday. If you have any reason you need to move your child out of the cohort, you have children with different last names that need to be in the same cohort, or some particular reason they need to be in an opposite cohort, you just need to contact Dr. Budd's office and they will arrange for you to be put in the other cohort.
Thank you.
And then we have, will kids still move around to other classes, or are they staying in the same classroom all day?
So I'm thinking that kids are going to move to, at the secondary level, they're going to continue to move into class. They're not staying in the same class, but I believe they're staying in kind of in a cohort group as best as possible. Is that correct? Christina, are you able to?
So my understanding is that the middle school, they're in teams, so their cohorts will be in their teams. The high school is a little trickier because kids take a variety of different specials, a variety of different level classes. So there will be definitely some movement around, some more movement around in the high school. In the middle school, it's kind of going to be sort of more limited in a corridor, that kind of thing, based on their team level. But that was really the reason we went to starting with a hybrid model, was the concern, particularly at the high school level, there's just so many kids in there. It's very hard to cohort because not everybody has the same schedule. Not every ninth grader has the same schedule. And so we really needed to de-densify what the amount of students were in a classroom in a day and in the hallway in a day.
Thank you.
Okay, and then Brashetta has another question.
Hi, yes, I'm piggybacking on Mrs. McIntyre's question. So my understanding that every child will be assessed for regression.
Yes,
Okay, right at the start of the year.
correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I had, how many children can be accommodated in a self-contained classroom?
Well, I think we're still following the same sort of guidelines. We're not, I think we were thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of 10, but I don't have the exact number. But most of our self-contained classrooms are small, so we are going to keep them small and make sure that we are keeping kids safe as possible. We are trying to distance kids in those classrooms by moving the furniture, and so the teams have been working really at the building level to do all of that.
And then we have another question, will kids be able to use lockers? I believe in the last, and you'll have to go back to the plan and check it, but I believe in the last document, it said that students would be, for the most part, not using lockers, encouraged to carry their stuff in a backpack from class to class. Due to health and safety reasons, we don't want students, We don't want students congregating at lockers, you know, and then the whole sanitizing protocol.
Right.
How many in a team? The teams tend to vary. It's depending on the size of the incoming middle school class that they have. It's usually about 100. Michelle Hayes, I think you're on the call, who's a middle school. They're about 100 to 125, right? Depending on the grade level on a team.
Yes, that's correct. And just to add to that, there is a lot of cross-teaming when it comes to special education in middle school. So that's the only place where kids would be cross-teamed.
Thank you. Anything else, Christina? Are we good? Doesn't look
That's it. That's all I have.
okay then. Does anybody, before we part, does anyone have anything else they want to add? All right then, I thank you all. More information is forthcoming. You can anticipate getting the information from your schools about more special education and any of those students that have been invited to come in for 4 days. But that is, you know, what you need to understand is this plan is fluid. It will continue to change as we get closer and as we get kids into the buildings. We'll certainly continue to monitor them, use all of our safety protocols that have been put forth so far. And as those change, we will continue to adapt. So thank you all. I appreciate this, and feel free to contact me or Ms. Beeman if you have any additional questions. Bye-bye now.